John 14, 1 through 7. Let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back again and will take you to myself, that where I am, you may also be. And if you know the way to where I am going, and you know the way to where I'm going. Verse 5, Thomas said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you had known me, you would have known my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. This is our study for the morning. This is the famous part of the Gospel of John. The Apostle John wrote these words, and this is the beginning of what is typically called the upper room discourse. And we're doing this, and we're starting here because we could think of this as a little bit of the seminary training that the disciples received before they went on to change the world. Coming on the heels of the book of First Peter, this is our study. I'm joined by Brian and Lincoln again, and we're going to begin by making some observations of the text. What do you guys notice? Let's just open it up and begin with observations or repetition.
Notice the word I is repeated over and over and over again, almost in every sentence. Jesus is saying it. Verse 3, I. Verse 4, I. Verse 6, I.
Right, I will go, and that where I am, I am. Yeah, okay, I am the way, and if you had known, we could also lump in me as well, right, into that. Okay, I might even add to that link that he's also, in addition to that, talking also about not just himself, but you could also throw into how he's talking about the Father. No one coming to the Father also, you would have known my Father. And this also know him and seen him, these pronouns are also referencing God the Father. So there's this exchange, which is going to happen in the upper room discourse, between Jesus talking about I, himself, and God the Father, him, and their relationship. It's going to become very, very Trinitarian, and we're also going to see him reference the Holy Spirit. Great. What else?
Well, certainly, the section is bookended with that he starts off with the believe in God, believe also in me, and then ends from now on, you do know him and you have seen him. If you've known me and you've known the Father.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
and of course the imperative here is that we said this yesterday, let not your hearts be troubled. Right before this, Peter had asked this question essentially of Lord, where are you going? Right? So that's the first question. Peter asks a question. And notice here as well in verse 5, Thomas asks a question. And in the verse right after this, Philip is going to ask a question. So there are these. This is sort of a Q&A type thing here with Jesus as he's about to go to the cross. Yeah. Other things that you noticed?
Seems like the question, particularly that Thomas asks, gets at the idea of knowing. The word "know" is repeated over and over again.
Yep.
In verse 5 and following, 5, 6, 7.
We don't know, at least don't know where. So how can we know the way, right? And right after that, Jesus just says, "You know the way." He says, no, we don't know where you're going, so how can we know the way?
Verse 17.
Yeah, it's interesting because he moves from sort of, they're asking this sort of informational question, how do we get there, to this very relational knowledge. It's not just, hey, you need to open up Google Maps and, figure out the directions. It's about this relationship with Jesus and ultimately with the Father.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yep. And it seems like the context to this Q&A is that they feel troubled, right? The disciples, of course, are very, very troubled in heart, understandably. We talked about that yesterday. And then Jesus's answer to that is that you should believe, right? Maybe we could ask, how is Jesus's answer here? How is he, what sort of comfort does he offer for trouble? Maybe we could talk about that a bit. What seems to be the flow of thought from this trouble to his solution, so to speak? It seems like there's belief. Anything else?
Well, and then obviously the idea that he's going to prepare a place for us, and we talked about that yesterday, but then today he adds on, that if he's doing the work of preparing this place for us, then the implication is I'm going to come back and get you to take you there. That's verse 3.
Yeah. If I go, he's going to go prepare it, and that naturally says that he himself will also secure and bring you to it.
Yeah, you could say his encouragement is his presence.
Okay.
He's the one who's going to do it. Instead of, maybe in contrast to what Peter was saying, that he's going to be the one to follow Jesus or even go before Jesus and not deny him or whatever. But in contrast, Jesus is saying, actually, I'm going to be the one who's going to get this done.
He's going to secure it. Good. Yeah. I like, let's talk about maybe verse 2 for a little bit. I'd love your thoughts on this. So again, it seems to me that Jesus's solution for trouble is believing in God, especially. But one of the things I hear you guys pointing out is he particularly draws our attention in trouble to this, to God the Father, right? To this idea of the Father. There is God the Father and a relationship that we can have with him. So what I'm mostly curious about is this idea about saying, believe in God, believe also in me. I would probably not think to go to verse 2 next if I were, the speaker here. In my Father's house, many rooms. What is this? How is this a comfort for this particular trouble? Thoughts on that?
Well, I think, the context is Jesus has already told them that he's about to leave. His hour has come. That's chapter 13, the beginning of that. The washing of the feet. Judas has left. He just told Peter, you're going to deny me and I'm going to leave you, and head back. So, the experience is going to be that they're going to be physically distanced from Jesus in this. And, perhaps even there's a sense of spiritually distance, in Peter's failure. The implication all the disciples are going to fail. But there's this confidence that he's giving them. He's reassuring them there is going to be this relational closeness. You will dwell with me. You will be in my Father's house with me. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I'm going to prepare a place for you, and I will come and take you to myself. So what I hear you saying, Brian, is a part of the comfort for trouble is this, we talk about a relationship with God. And that can sound kind of cheesy. Jesus really thinks that's supposed to comfort us in difficulty and unmet expectation. Take you to myself. So the preparation of Jesus is a preparation for relationship and intimacy within the Godhead that's extended to us. That's incredible. Yeah. What other preparations is Jesus seeming to make? What other comforts here?
I think one of the comforts there is, going off what Brian was saying earlier, is that there is a sense of division and separation from Jesus in their immediate circumstances. He is going away, but there's coming a time when he will never go away, and there will be this place of intimacy. So he's preparing them with the truth of the dispersion that's going to happen in the immediate context, but he's also saying this dispersion is really temporary. Yeah,
that's right. So there's a temporariness. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say, in sort of the adoption world, we talk about helping kids find a forever home. And I think, that's so cool to hear Jesus saying, I am preparing a forever home for you.
Oh, yeah. And this is the part where he's going to go on to say, I'm not going to leave you as orphans. I'm coming back for you. So he's explicitly going to use that adoption language here.
Which goes all the way back to chapter 1. Back in chapter 1, I think we talked about it yesterday, chapter 1, verse 12, to all who believe in him, he gave the right to become children of God.
Yeah.
That adoption language.
Good. Yeah. And interestingly enough, I think one of the comforts is in verse 2, he says, just so you know, my Father has many rooms. That's a strange thing to say. Maybe we could talk about the significance of this here, because certainly there's a relation thing. I'm going to take you to myself, but there's also maybe not only a relationship that is of comfort, but maybe also in a sense of abundance. That God the Father, he is preparing a place of delight, of unspeakable joy and exceeding riches. Maybe this idea of a many-roomed house seems to tap into that image, that there, I don't know if he's saying there's room for all of you, but to use the adoption imagery, Brian, maybe you could chime in a little bit here. It's more riches than they can probably imagine is the family house that they're being brought into.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he picks that up, he says, I am the way, the truth, and the life, this idea of life that he's catching into. John 11, I think it's John 11, maybe John 10, where he says, I came to give life and life abundantly. Yeah. So it's not, I'm just trying to get you just out of God's wrath. Like, let's just get you, by the skin of your teeth, dodging that bullet. It's like, let's dump the blessing truck on you.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So we don't think of Christianity here as a sparing us simply from the wrath of God or fire insurance from hell, but there's an adoption into the family of God. That means the abundance of the Father. That means a relationship with the Trinity. What else would that mean? Any other thoughts here, what Jesus is saying? And it seems again that you would say that it's secure, it's prepared, and I will come again. So a secure, abundant relationship. Yeah. Inheritance, imperishable, undefiled, unfading is how Peter is going to go on to say this when he writes his epistle. Yeah. What else would be a comfort here? Any other thoughts? This is tremendously comforting, I think, to the listeners and to me as well. Well, let's talk about verse 4 here a little bit, which he says that there seems to be a question, which Thomas says, okay, this all sounds really good, Jesus, but objection, we don't know where you're going. I don't know if there's an air of pessimism there. Jesus says, and Thomas says, nuh-uh, which is generally not a good idea, I guess, here. He says, and he says, we do not know. Why is Thomas saying that? I mean, we tend to be down on Thomas. I don't know if he's being pessimistic here. It's hard to say. But, okay, Jesus says that he's leaving, and Thomas says, we don't know where you're going. Why is Thomas saying this? Does this reflect maybe pessimism or disappointment or confusion? What do you guys think of Thomas?
I think he gets a bad rap because I think we'd probably all ask the same question in those circumstances. Jesus is saying he's going, and he's saying in verse 4, you know the way to where I'm going. But it doesn't seem like he's laid that out exactly. So I think Thomas is really asking a logical question. We really kind of treat Thomas like he's the doubting one, like, oh man, little Thomas, he just struggles with doubt. It's just a very normal question to have asked. Where are you going?
Yeah, how can we know how to get there? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, they want to know the way to get to the destination.
Mm-hmm.
But what's interesting is the way Jesus answers is totally surprising.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and he, even in chapter 13, on multiple occasions, he says, like, very explicitly, where I'm going, you cannot follow me. So at least initially, they can't get there. And then he's saying, but yeah, eventually, I'll come back. You can't follow me, but I'm going to come back and get you and bring you there. And there's this whole mixture because he's saying, the way, but then he's saying, well, I am the way. Like, how do you get there? It's, well, you don't. I take you. I take you. But
right. This is not some sort of like mystery novel, how to get to heaven. It's not a secret. Like, we don't know how on earth do we come into this mysterious abundant life. And Jesus says this isn't some mystery novel. It's the revealed language here is you already know, and I am that way that you know. Yeah, go ahead, Link. Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, no, that's really good, Dave. That's basically what I was getting at too. That Thomas wants to know information, where Jesus says you already know the person.
Right. That's good. Okay.
I think that's really the distinction here that's going on. Thomas thinks he needs to know information to get to the destination. Jesus is saying, no, you need to know the person, which you already know.
Right.
Which is interesting because he's saying, I am both the means of getting there, but I'm also the destination, right. that you will be with me. I think it's the grand, it's the condescension of God. He will make his dwelling with us. That's what it talks about in Revelation at the very end, is that the beauty of the new heaven and the new earth is that not that we are going up to God, but that he has prepared a place for us and he comes down to dwell with us.
Yeah, that's so good, Brian.
Mind-blowing about it.
Yeah, so wait, you said God is the destination. God is what we get. That's the inheritance, is a relationship with God in the family of God. And God is also the means to get there. Jesus says, I'm going to take you to that destination of God. That's really insightful, because I think sometimes we think like, oh, Jesus is the one who's going to help me get to heaven, or I'll do whatever I want. But it seems like God is the point of that. Like knowing the Father, having a relationship with God himself, this fountain of joy, that seems to be where we're going, right? That's the destination.
It's almost like he's the way, the truth, and the life.
Hey, let's talk about those words. Now, here, we got to
so
think
good.
about this. So in verse 6, by the way, we have a very epic statement because John is full of these. They're called the I am statements in the gospel. Jesus does these. He does them several times, the ego eimi statements, where he makes these epic claims about himself. And here we have some. He says, number 1, way, truth, life. 1, 2, 3. What's the significance of those words? Why would Jesus pick those? Does that make sense? This is like the classic Christian bumper sticker passage here, but what's the significance of those things, you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, can I even go back to a little bit and just look at the way he's saying this? He's saying, I am the way.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I note here is not saying, here is a way, here is truth, here is life. He's not like a normal teacher who would give us the way to get to these things or offer us something. He's saying, in my person are these things.
Yeah.
Which I think is a really helpful distinction. He's not offering us primarily these benefits apart from himself, but he's saying these benefits are found in me.
Right. So he's not like a spiritual guru, like offering counseling. Right. Like, here's a nice thought for you. He's saying these things are bound up in himself. Is that right, Link?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I think this is so key because Christianity can be pretty easy to make it about the benefits Jesus offers, and he offers a lot. But we can't fool ourselves by making Christianity about the benefits Jesus offers us instead of making it about the person in whom we find the benefits.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. So it's all about the person. It's about the I am statements, right? Jesus makes many of these, but this is a very important one. And this seems like what hinges here is whether or not you will actually have comfort for trouble and make it to glory and be with the Father. So there's a lot on the line. Why would he use these words? Way, truth, life. What's bound up in those things?
I don't remember about the way, but certainly the truth and the life are not new concepts to the book of John. He's introduced those, all the way from back in the beginning. John 1, in him it was grace and truth, so
right.
Right from the get-go, there's these concepts are introduced, and Jesus has been constantly sort of shaping people's ideas. Truth is not a concept. Truth is a person. Life is not a thing. It's a person. And I think he's just introducing the way. I forget if that one comes up earlier or not, but I think he's just introducing it here.
It's hard to say. There could be Old Testament connections to them as well. I think back, especially as you think about the truth and life. John has said that these things are written that you might have life in his name through belief. So there's always a connection between belief and life in John's gospel, these two words. I think truth as well, in terms of that Jesus is the prophet of God. He's the true prophet who's going to declare and speak to you the words of truth. And way, certainly the idea of knowing the way to the promised land is a thing that they were led along. I don't know if he's tapping into those images. It's difficult to say. But he's not just talking about the way to your personal dreams. He's talking about the way to the Father. The way to the Father, the way into the presence of God himself. Any other significance to these words? Way, truth, life?
Yeah, I mean, I was just interested in what you're saying there with the way, Dave. The way this is what Thomas is asking about. He wants to follow after Jesus, and he knows Jesus is going to the Father. Jesus has already said that. So he's saying, how do I get to the Father? And he says, you've come to me. I am the way you get to the Father.
Right.
In me, in my person. So you already have this.
Right.
He's not saying this is a lifestyle, right? Follow these 10 tips and you'll really get it. He's saying, no, come to me, the person, and you have the way to God.
Right. And in the chat, I'm noticing that, yes, he's not just talking to Peter. He's not just doing Q&A one-on-one with the disciples. Where even right here, when he says, believe, that's the way, right? Because, and certainly this is he's speaking in a you plural sort of way, just to be clear. As a matter of fact, when he says believe in or believe also, it's let not your hearts be troubled, be believing in me, or you are believing in me and you're believing in God. This present continuous, be believing also in me and in God, you all. I think that's what's in view here. And so believing in Jesus Christ, that's a way. That's interesting. So it's not a higher knowledge. It's not even a particular morality, or like Peter being filled of self-assurance that we're never going to let Jesus down. It's continuing in belief in Jesus. That's the way. Yeah. Thomas à Kempis, old school theologian, used to say, if without the way there's no going, without the truth there's no knowing, and without the life there's no living. And Jesus claims to be all three. And I think he's insightful here in that Jesus claims to be that. He's the true prophet of God. He's the one in whom that there's life and life to the full. So I think belief maybe is a way to connect to each of these things here, believing in God. I don't know if that's any other observations you'd make about those words?
I think just the idea
something that I was thinking. Thank you. That thread throughout the book of John where Jesus is the light, and that whole illustration is that he is illuminating both sort of the way back to God, but also who God is. I think, chapter 12, right before the upper room discourse, with the washing of the feet, where this all begins, he says, whoever believes in me believes not in me, but in him who sent me. Whoever sees me sees him who sent me. I have come into the world as a light, so that whoever believes in me may not remain in darkness. And that's where he goes again here. From now on, you do know him and you have seen him. It's connecting back to that idea.
Good.
I think particularly with the truth idea that he is illuminating, and he's the light that shows us the Father. He shows us the way to the Father.
Yeah, we got to talk about this controversial statement. Sorry, Link, I know you're eager to jump in, but
okay.
Look, we're in it. No one comes to the Father except through me. How close-minded of Jesus. Is that saying what I think it's saying?
Well, it's so interesting because I was just going to say, it struck me reading it this morning, thinking about this, that this section is a comfort. And I think we usually have used that verse as a warning.
That's right.
But it is in this section as a comfort. Certainly there is a narrowing of this. He's trying to push the point. I am the way. This is it. But it's meant to be this comfort. You already know it. You're already attached to the way.
Right. Yeah. What else might this be significant? No one comes to the Father except through me. So is Jesus saying? Yeah. I mean, that is an exclusive claim. Absolutely. Right.
Sure.
Yeah. But it's meant to be in a sense of comfort, though, that to say that actually these other things are not going to produce life and truth and the way to the Father to ultimately comfort my troubled heart.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things he could be hitting at here too. He could be hitting at just the Old Testament legalistic lifestyle that's not a way you're going to come to the Father. You're not going to find fullness there. You need the person of Jesus Christ. He could be hitting at what we were talking about earlier with Peter, right? That you can't do this on your own.
Right.
You actually need to come to me as a person.
Right.
Yeah, it is an exclusive claim, but it's been the exclusive claim that he's made throughout the book.
Absolutely.
John 1 says it this way, that no one has ever seen God, the only God who's at the Father's side. He has made him known. It's the special work of Jesus to make God known to us.
Exactly. That's really good. And that connects to verse 7, I think. If you had known me, you'd know my Father. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. Fascinating thing to say.
Yep.
If you want to know what is God like, how do you know God the Father? God the Father is a spirit. He doesn't have a body, but when God the Father looks in the mirror, it's Jesus, it seems, right? And we're going to talk about that. This Trinitarian language is going to get more and more intense here, as the upper room discourse continues. We are running out of time. Let's talk about principles and application here. One that I already hear is that troubled hearts, right? Trouble, belief, and relationship with God, who is the way, the truth, and the life, which is just very helpful. I often don't think in trouble that what I most need is to lean into a relationship. You know what I'm saying? I usually try to think, what sort of schemes do I need to hatch to navigate my trouble? And Jesus says, you know the way, but keep on believing. I think that's one principle. What other principles, applications for us and our listeners?
I was just thinking this morning, we were reading with the kids over breakfast, Psalm 91, since it's the 91st day of the calendar year. We were reading Psalm 91. And in it says that you, Lord Most High, are my dwelling place, which is another way that you can translate the word many rooms as many dwelling places.
Yeah.
So it just really struck me that we were just talking about this yesterday, came across that in Psalm 91, that there's this sense of taking refuge in the Lord and dwelling in him, or Jesus is going to say, I think, abiding in him. That there really is a sense that where do we go in our trouble? It's to abide in Jesus. It's to just, It's sort of the Mary Martha thing. Like what do I need to do right now?
Yeah.
If I need to be with Jesus, and that's the better portion.
That's great, Brian.
That's so helpful, Brian. And I think that connects to what Jesus is saying there in verse 6, because he's saying you need to know me. And if you actually know me, you know how great I am. And I think he shows us how great he is in that one verse. Right? I mean, if we just spent, we probably could spend a month meditating on that one verse, that he is the way, he is the truth, that he is the life. I think that's just so sweet. I mean, especially the life is what stuck out to me. Like the fullness of life is not found in entertainment or things or knowing more information, but it's found in Jesus.
Yeah,
super good.
I think that's insightful. I think just the idea of a relationship with God, I don't know, maybe it's a guy thing. I often struggle with that as actually a thing for comfort, I think I look to controlling my trouble. And maybe a practical application is in our season of maybe trouble that's been caused by this separation and social distance. Do you think much about a relationship with God the Father? Have we ever thought about the fact that God is going to resurrect us to a place of abundance and a place of relationship for sure? Jesus says, I'm going to take you, be believing in me. I just don't think of the relational angle of Christianity very much, and maybe that's to my shame. Other applications?
I think it's just such a comfort, this idea that Jesus is coming back for us. I just think we often distance ourselves from that reality. We're just pretty quick to, what are the troubles right in front of my face? And waiting is hard. Like waiting is really hard. And I think, we are in a season of waiting, aren't we? But this comfort is like, it's just, man, in the light of eternity, in light of our forever home, it's a mist, it's a vapor. We're going to blink and this life is going to be over and Jesus is going to come back and collect us. So I think to take comfort in saying this is temporary and my Savior is coming for me, he's going to get me, really is a comfort. And it should be something that we call to mind.
Yeah,
that's really helpful, Brian. I think particularly in this season, one of the things that I've felt as, you continue to follow the news, it's like, the question I keep wondering is like, is this ever going to end? Right? Because it's like, oh, well, it'll be 2 weeks. And then it's like, well, no, it's going to be April. And then we just don't know. So it does feel kind of eternal in a way. It feels like it's just going to keep going on. It doesn't necessarily feel as much like there's light at the end of the tunnel. But this passage is just really helpful because it reminds us that even though there are troubles here, they're not going to last. We have a place where we will have real security and delight with God the Father and with Jesus himself.
I think one of the things this reminds me of is I think as we're reframing verse 6 to say, hey, that's supposed to be a comfort, verse 6 and 7 taken together. It's no one comes to the Father except through me. But hey, you do know the Father. Like he is trying to comfort them. You are attached to me. So you know the way. Take courage. And I think certainly in the epistle of 1 John, he sort of picks up on that kind of idea. Like, I want you to know, I want you to have assurance that you're saved. And so I think for us to say, we're supposed to read verse 6 with that measure of assurance. Hey, if I know Jesus, I know the way, the truth, and the life. Like I am in those things because of that, that we should really be encouraged. So listen, like my performance today, it doesn't matter for this grand thing. It's not the measurement. I don't need to look at that and go, today was a good day or today was a bad day. It's just days of grace, as has been said before.
That's awesome, Brian. Yeah. Adopted into the family of God, the abundance of God, under the grace of God.